For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Dan Weber for instant analysis of USC's fifth practice of fall camp and first day in full pads. Dan, I know everyone's anticipating a full pads day from the Trojans. What did you see from practice today?
Well, I think we kind of hinted at it in the two practices with shoulder pads, that they kind of went at those practices in shoulder pads very much like it was full pads.
Yeah.
So I don't think there was much of a transition, although they did do full tackling today for the first time. But other than that, that was, very similar kind of practice. And, I thought they looked like they want to get after it. They got to run the ball a little bit more today. We saw Marquis step on a 70-yard, off tackle just first, and you go, whoa, he got that speed going. I just thought, I think, they competed well. They did, I guess, 6 periods in the red zone.
Yeah.
At the end, you had 6 plays to score or not score, and all 4 quarterbacks. And that was really competitive. The one-on-ones were competitive. I thought, I think the competition is it's really there. I mean, I'm not sure we had much of a sense of competition last year. So if I had to say anything, it was just a sense of competition that, going in full pads allows you to have. But not that big a change from the previous 2 days.
Yeah. As Dan mentioned, they did a lot of red zone, especially towards the end of practice. The team was essentially split up where you had both offense and defense on both sidelines. Usually it's just offense on one sideline, defense on the other, pairing the first team offense with second team and third team defense and vice versa. But Dan, what did you see from all 4 quarterbacks, like you said, and the groups that they were paired with?
I think we got to see JT with the first group, and that's a whole different look, I think. And throwing the, Pittman and Amon-Ra and Tyler Vaughns and what have you. So I thought he did a really nice job and got him 2 touchdowns, and they just, ran the offense the way, okay, that's the way it's supposed to look. I think we had, you had a couple of really nice, deep middle balls for touchdowns thrown by, I guess, Jack Sears and Keaton. Everybody wasn't going against the first team, and so it really depended on who was mixed and matched. But I thought their attention to detail and their ability to do things, like they run a little slip screen now that they really block nicely. The timing is good for this early in the year. They got a touchdown for Munir McClain on a really well block that he showed some footwork that I was like, whoa. I'm thinking that one was from about 70 yards out. So, and I thought they blocked the first group, really blocked the Marquis step off tackle on the right side run really well at the line of scrimmage. And so I thought we saw some good things today.
Did you feel like this was the first time you could truly evaluate both O-line and D-line since they're in full pads?
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the D-line guys, Marlon Tuipulotu, it's only his 4th practice, so he wasn't allowed to be in full pads. But I thought was interesting, they just put him out there. And Stephen Carr, same way. Those guys had classes, so they had to miss one for a final exam. And he scored a touchdown in the red zone also. So they're not babying him. I mean, I know that's been an accusation, but I don't. You didn't get that sense at all. And again, there's a lot of competition, a lot of pride on the line. We're mostly behind the defensive guys, but they really, it matters.
Yeah.
I mean, they're yelling at every, is it inbounds or out of bounds? Is he in the end zone or not? What's the call here and all that. They're really, again, we really didn't see that last year.
Yeah, there's a definite fire there in these practices. But Dan, it was the first day to talk to the defensive guys, defensive coaches, and players. I know you got to jump around into a lot of scrums. What did you learn today?
Well, I think Clancy kind of agreed with me a little bit that this is a team that may not have a lot of experience on paper. If you look and say, what are the numbers and who did you lose? But they look like they're playing with experience. I mean, because of the way they're talking out there and the way they're converging and, the ball stripping stuff and all. And I thought the tackling and most of the time was good. I mean, C.J. Pollard, for example, got singled up on a flare pass at the sidelines with Quincy Jonte, who's really had a good practice, fall camp so far. And he came up and he delivered. I mean, he wrapped him and delivered a blow and knocked the ball loose, and just was, great to see, C.J. able to do that. And when they do that, the whole sideline just erupts because they're just, so excited. But it's a very, they're exciting, and they're excited about, doing. I mean, Elijah Griffin and Isaac Taylor Stewart look so far away from the guys we saw last year. I mean, they do not even resemble those guys. OG got his fourth interception, which equals the total of the whole team in 12 games last year today on a Talanoa deflection off Amon-Ra, and here comes OG in the play, and he's got it. You're seeing more of that, where you see 3 or 4 guys converging, where you see guys running to the ball. I thought that both of them and Isaac Taylor Stewart are both kind of proud of how they're handling this year. And OG coming back from his 2 shoulder surgeries and saying, you're not going to let something like that, stop you. And Isaac Taylor, Stewart saying, you just got to do everything right. You just got to pay attention to what they're asking you to do, and you can build the experience that you need by what you're doing in practice. Again, you did not hear that where people say practice gives you the kind of experience that really transfers to games. So I thought that was a good job by those guys. I think Clancy's pretty proud of where they are in terms of understanding the playbook, and that he thought they got a lot done in the summer. And Greg Burns he's pretty pleased with the numbers that he has to work with and the way they're kind of paying attention to what he wants them to do.
Mm-hmm. And as far as what you mentioned about inexperience but presenting themselves like they have experience, I've been really impressed by the safeties, Isaiah Polomau and Talanoa Hufanga. Those two, they communicate a lot with their teammates, with each other. Greg Johnson is another guy who communicates a lot. But those two safeties seem to carry themselves like older veteran leaders when they don't actually have that under their belt yet.
Yeah, I asked OG, who was, he's kind of a vocal kid. He said Greg Johnson is the most vocal guy out there. So give that to Greg. And he said, I think we're all, pretty vocal. I think one of the things I like to see what they're doing is they're flipping both safeties like every 5 days, and they're flipping the corners every 3 days. So Chris Steele told, after starting out on, I think the left side, now on the right side, telling Greg Burns that that's my better side. He said he'll be on the other side almost immediately now because I want to get him ready to play both sides. So it's that kind of little detailed stuff that again, we're going to say it a million times probably, we didn't see last year.
Yeah, I know you mentioned the cornerbacks already, but as far as that competition, I know a lot of people are curious about that considering you're losing a lot of starters. You lose Iman Marshall. What have you seen from that? Can you tell who has an edge right now as far as the cornerback competition goes?
No, I don't think so. I think you've got a lot of athletes who are, there are more athletes playing there than there have been in a long, long time. And more guys, I think, that are closer to be able, to play in games. But, you've got, Elijah Griffin and Isaac Taylor Stewart and Chris Steele and Greg Johnson. So you've got those 4, right away. And then, you decide, what they're, the freshmen, boy, it's just hard to say, oh, it's, one or the other. But most of them look like they can find their way. I mean, I think Clancy's looking at it as kind of a 3 deep, and he's pretty pleased with what he's seeing.
Yeah. When talking to Clancy Pendergast and defensive line coach Chad Kay, you get the impression that they're very impressed with true freshman Drake Jackson. Both of them mentioned that Drake will see the field on Saturdays, but Chad Kay was sure to make a caveat. Drake hasn't really played a college game yet, so he doesn't want to put him on the pedestal just yet. But what do the defensive coaches get with a guy like Drake?
But he is now. They're basically listing him. The 4-down package is he and Christian are the 2 defensive ends, and his according to Coach K, his job is not to screw up Drake. He said, I'm not, going to talk him up. Let's let him play a few games. He hasn't done anything for USC yet. But I said, because I asked him, there's really not. I mean, you're not going to teach him how to get off, any quicker than he. And he said, no. I mean, you just get guys that have that special something. And it was interesting. Drake said that he has the freedom to either line up with his hand on the ground or standing up. It's just, it's kind of, if I feel like it. He's fun to talk to. Ask him about, do people, know who you are, or did everybody that you run into say they saw that interception in the spring game? And he said, I hope they did. And he said that surprised even me. And then he said he's not on Twitter though, because if he's on Twitter he might be missing something. He says he watches film in the cold tank, for example. He watches it everywhere. So he seems, if you get a kid with that kind of physical ability and who's that serious about what he's doing, I mean, he's got a kind of a real upbeat, very, kind of pleasant attitude, but also really serious. He's fun to talk to, and he just thrilled to death to be able to, be out there. And I asked him because Clancy said, no, it was Coach Chad said, in some defenses he'll be lined up inside. He won't be playing defensive end. I said, what are you thinking about that? Now you're going to be down inside. And he said, well, you get to line up against those maybe not so athletic, slow guys. And so I think that's really good. He's thinking, what advantages do I have if I'm lined up against some 315-pounder? What do I do? Well, I'm way quicker, and I'm way more athletic. So that's great. I mean, that's like, okay, this is a good opportunity, as opposed to, ooh, he outweighs me by 40. So, and that's a freshman thinking like that. That's really good.
Yeah. Both Clancy and Chad K were asked for tangible differences about the defensive line and how they're going to stop the run this year. But Chad K seemed really proud of the first team D-line. He said they didn't lose gap control at all today. Clancy did mention that marquee step run where they did kind of get.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, but other than that, both of them felt pretty proud of what the changes they've made so far this offseason. Clancy actually said that this is the most comfortable he feels about the defensive line and their gap control in this offseason. So out of his 3-4 years at USC, so both of them seem pretty proud of where this front is at.
Yeah, I think they should be, and I think that's a good sign, because you want Clancy to be comfortable, because you want him to feel like, I can do this, I can do that, I can play this guy, I can play that guy. I mean, he talked about the numbers. I thought they were interesting. He said when they played the Rose Bowl, they had basically 13 guys they really thought they could play, and like 15 or so dressed who they could put in the game. He said in the Cotton Bowl the next year they had like 17 and 21 or something like that. He said, we got a lot more than that now. And that's whatever it takes to make Clancy feel like I can get this job done with a lot of these guys. That's great. I mean, so you get the sense that, there will be deeper rotation. And you get the sense that I've gotten from these guys is they're not just saying that they've been studying the playbook. They really have. I mean, that where you watch what they do, when Burns, tells them this or that, he wants this, or they seem to all be able to do it and do it together. So, again, a lot of good signs.
Mm-hmm. As far as injuries go, it's the same lot. Those guys, Jake Lichtenstein, Solomon Tulialapupu, but the new guys that came out not dressed was Max Williams, the freshman cornerback, and then Brandon Peely. We mentioned him on yesterday's incident analysis that he came out. He had a left knee brace on, a sleeve, not necessarily a brace, so he was not in there. And then who am I forgetting?
Yeah, Jordan Iosefa came in on crutches.
Jordan Iosefa came out. Iosefa came out
on brace on his left knee.
Crutches, and then Vavai Malapei was not dressed out. Clay Helton said that he was getting an MRI. We haven't been able to talk to Clay Helton about that MRI, but Vavai was walking around pretty well. I don't think it looked like it was serious.
Okay, yeah, but that's the downside maybe of we have more access to like all the defensive players and coaches, but we don't get the head coach. So and he's the only one that's allowed to talk about injuries. But I think we might have heard something if it would have been more serious about Vi. So we'll see.
Alrighty. Any thoughts before we wrap up USC's first full pad practice day?
No, I like the way they come off the field after practice. I think you get a sense when you talk to them. They're young, but you get a sense, okay, we got something done today. We accomplished something today. And I just like that they gave them a lot of opportunities to compete in that red zone. I thought that was, I think it probably got everybody in there. I mean, they had field goal kickers and place kickers, and, they just, I don't think they can do too much of that. I just think just keep doing it.
Yep. Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up for day 5 of USC's fall camp. For Dan Weber, I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out uscfootball.com.